leadership of Pakistan is not again the caricature that the world wants to paint of many, many generations ago, where there would have been conflict in this transition, where there would have been anti-Al-Qaeda as a result of 9/11 and their alliances in the world. But when you got down to the officers and the individuals who fought the wars alongside who used to be the Mujahideen, there may have been grey areas. Now, the military leadership in Pakistan have come up through the ranks while combating these terrorists on the front lines. They fought them in Swat, they fought them in South Waziristan, they fought them in North Waziristan. They earned their honors in valor and in bravery while fighting these terrorists, and then got promoted to the current ranks that they are while they lead our armed forces. So in that context, we fought the bloody war over what's left over from Afghan 1. The international community, through FATF, has only recently endorsed Pakistan's actions against the groups of concern to India. So we've lived up to international scrutiny of the FATF that endorsed Pakistan's actions against the LET and other groups, and have approved the actions that Pakistan has taken. And we've gone from the grey list to the white list because they believe that those actions are worth a violin or of significance. Now, so far, I've only talked about the challenges that we faced from Afghan 1. The new terrorist problem that we're facing is Afghan 2, the consequences of the fall of Kabul. And we've seen in the space of the last couple of years a significant increase in terrorist attacks within Pakistan. At this point in time, if we continue at the trajectory that the terrorist attacks are just taking place in this year, I mean, not at the end of the year yet, but if it continues at this trajectory and we get to the end of the year, then this year, 2025, will be the bloodiest year Pakistan has seen as far as terrorism is concerned. Year after year, we've been the largest victims of terrorism. So far, 92,000 lives lost. Even this year, we hold the record, the glorious record, of being the country where the single largest number of terrorist attacks are taking place and the single largest number of victims of terrorism exist. It is in this context that we passionately advocate for regional cooperation, international cooperation to combat terrorism. The US just 2 days ago called Pakistan a phenomenal partner in combating terrorism. We have managed to collectively thwart terrorist attacks within Pakistan and in capitals across the Western world as a result of Pakistan and those Western countries' close collaboration and CT efforts. Pakistan and India, since 2012, have had no collaboration on counterterrorism. The last collaboration we had was within the confines of this comprehensive dialogue that we now seek. Even in that cooperation, Pakistan shared information as far as LET is concerned and the terrorists that were going to attack their country, which resulted in India taking action against those groups. India never supported Pakistan in our concerns about the BLA and the Majid Brigade and the support that they provide for these organizations. Even now, we believe that the only way for us to secure the future of South Asia from terrorism, from the new threats that we're going to face, will ultimately be cooperation between India and Pakistan. Without talking to one another, if you even look at the 2019 attack, which is the last attack that resulted in planes in the air, between that day and this day, the April 22nd attack in Paltan, no communication, no intelligence sharing took place as far as terrorism is concerned. And finally, the fact that India cannot turn off the taps is untrue. They've turned off the taps in the past. 1948, 1949, I believe, where they shut Pakistan's water. They have been in violation of the, it then resulted in negotiating the Indus Water Treaty, dividing our sharing the resources. Within the mechanisms of the Indus Water Treaty, we had complaints that India was violating the Indus Water Treaty, was damming places they shouldn't dam, was building structures they shouldn't build, was building structures larger than they were allowed to under the treaty. But those cases we were facing through the structure of this mechanism. What India has done is A, threatened to turn off the taps. And I want to repeat, Just threatening to turn off the tap is a violation of the UN Charter. It's not about how much damage they have caused, just making this threat is a violation of international law. Now, they implement it in two ways. One way is the extreme scenario where Pakistan has already laid out that this would be an act of war. That would be damming the rivers that are right in accordance to this treaty, carving out new canals on those three rivers. The other way that they damage us or they turn off the taps is you only have to delay the release of the water from the so-called tap by up to a week. 1 week's delay or even less would mean that our crops die. And our agriculture economy is devastated, our people is devastated, our food security has connotations of those. So, it's not about their ability or capacity to turn off the taps. This precedent should never be allowed to set. We cannot allow the weaponization of water in this way. We are seeking a new dialogue with India, where we will make new promises with one another, potentially sign new treaties. For that process to start, they need to respect all treaties. They need to take that decision, take us back to the position that we were before this ceasefire, not just militarily, but also diplomatically.
I mean, if I may just ask, just add to it. How long do you think it would take to turn the tap off? How long does it take to build a dam? You'd blink, and we'd all have the answer. It takes 6 to 8 years. 2019 is when we had our skirmish. That was 6 years ago. That's how long it takes to build a dam. So when you say, have they turned the tap off? Should we wait when we are left with no water and the tap is actually turned off? So it doesn't take much to build a dam. It doesn't take much to build a canal. So the fundamental question is not have they turned the tap off, because the chairman has already answered that yes, they have. Over the past 1.5 months, they've flooded and held back water when we needed it for cropping. And for the winter cropping, they're going to do it again because there's scarcity of water. And when they hold back water during winter cropping, our saplings, our seeds would die. And they only have to hold it back through the cascade of dams that they have just for about 10 days. And we'd have food security, we'd have drought. But that's not the fundamental question. The fundamental question is, when you're making policy, are you making policy for day before yesterday? We'd blink and we'd be in the 7th year. And then what are we going to do? That's basically fundamental to this dispute.
If anybody has a couple of final questions for me, then I have to step out to another interview and I'll leave you in the very able hands of everybody else to also answer your questions. Yes.
A couple of questions. Thank you. Thank you very much. This has been a very insightful afternoon. Greatly appreciate it. My name is Eric Piaget. I'm a researcher at the United Nations University in Bruges, and I'm coordinating a work package on science diplomacy at the VUB, which is part of this alliance of universities called Utopia. But I very much admire your commitment to dialogue and diplomacy. What I was interested in knowing is, of course, the ecosystem of diplomacy is much broader than foreign ministries. You track 1 and then track 2. The Institute of Multi-Track Diplomacy even has 9 different tracks of diplomacy: businesses, civil society, religious organization. I was just curious to know how you might envision engaging these other diplomatic actors towards your.
You would take more questions.
Sure. We can do like a quick fire round of a couple of questions and I'll go through.
Andreas Stignitz, work for the EAS. A very short question. Sorry. To which extent do you think that it is India is driven by its domestic agenda, and do you think another government in India would bring a different relationship between India and Pakistan?
Very good question.
Michel Bekemeter, Club of Brussels. We are experts in regeneration, socioeconomic and environmental. We did an inventory of over 100 projects of greening in the deserts, in hyper-arid areas. A lot of solutions exist, and I was wondering if you have also, because the water problem is going to be worse by the year, so we can try to manage what we can manage today, but we know is going to be worse. Solutions exist, local solutions for water management, flood captation, etc., etc. Do we have experiences like that and knowledge centers that knowledge can be shared with them, Pakistan or not? Or would you be interested to connect?
Okay, absolutely. I think then let's start answering those questions. Other tracks, it takes two to tango. So someone has to agree to any level of talk before a talk can take place. At the moment, India is doggedly disagreeing because I believe they find it convenient to use for them to have a justification to not talk and then unilaterally act, whether it was in 2019, the unilateral changes that they took within the Kashmir context or in the Indus Water Treaty. But obviously we will continue to pursue that path, and we would be very keen at any level and at any way if this conversation could start. I believe that a minimal improvement should be that at the moment we have DGMO to DGMO talks as far as the ceasefire implementation is concerned. The minimal elevation of that talks would be an NSA to NSA level talk, and then sort of develop it forward towards a comprehensive dialogue. As far as domestic politics, absolutely it's driven this.